What's going on, folks? We are here once again with Catechism Tuesdays, week 13. We are getting through this thing here. I am John.
I'm Ramon.
So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. So we finished up the 10 Commandments, right? So hope you guys enjoyed that. We had a great time going through that. Now we're going to shift over into what the Catechism has next. So question 13. Can anyone keep the law of God perfectly? I answer that. Since the fall, no mere human has been able to keep the law of God perfectly, but consistently breaks it in thought, word, and deed. Pastor V, can you talk about that a little bit to us in terms of what does that really mean?
Yeah, so, coming up at the 10 Commandments, which sums up God's law, really what this question is making us ask is, well, do we do it? Do we do this law in the way that God requires us to do the law, which is perfectly? And the answer is, no, we can't. And that's supposed to hit us hard in the gut. And I think initially we may think, well, wait a minute, like I'm not so bad. I don't steal, I don't murder, all these other things. But one of the things we said as we were working through the 10 Commandments, and that this question really gets at, is that we're talking about God's law in thought, word, and deed.
So let's get into that perfectly part. That's a really key word, right? You know, in terms of the perfectly. So when you say thought, word, and deed, give us some examples in terms of that.
Yeah, and so we just use the example of murder, right? We may not physically murder someone, but we are murdering people with our thoughts, right? Thinking bad thoughts about them, wishing ill of them. With the words that we use, we may say really mean and cutting and cruel and sarcastic things to people. And so all that, it really comes down to the fact that we all sin. We all fall short, as the Bible says, of the glory of God. Historically speaking, some have called this the doctrine of total depravity. We still use that term, and that term just is just a way of referring to what I think this question is getting at. The fact that we all sin in all sorts of different ways. We don't keep God's law in the ways that we should.
Yeah, man. And that's unfortunate because, like, this has been happening since the beginning of time, right? Yeah. Since Adam and Eve and all of that. And we almost have to admit that we are actually sick before we can actually go and see a doctor, right?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, we have to admit that something's wrong with us. We're broken, right? Yeah. In order for us to cry out for help. And the good thing about it is Jesus is always there to be able to help. He's always there to be able to give you that peace and that grace and all that. So I think that's really important. And even though we did not keep the law perfectly, Jesus did. Amen. He came and fulfilled the law, lived the life that me and you should have lived. Unfortunately, we can't because of our sin, but he was without sin. And he suffered, he died, he rose from the grave, conquering sin and death. And anyone who's rolling with him, who's in him, they will conquer death as well. And also, he's coming to restore everything that was broken. That's another thing, too. Not only just our hearts to be restored, but also the whole entire world. So that's good news, man.
Yeah, amen.
But there you have it. We are going to be out right now. Catechism Tuesdays, week 13. Love God, love people. We're out. Peace.